We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
From inept governance to woke platitudes, it seems the new model America has something to offer for almost everyone. But what happens when enough just becomes enough? Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's edition, we talk about the New York state of emergency, the growing trends in woke entertainment, and what's coming out of the United States Supreme Court. I'd like to say a special thank you to our listeners out in Hagerstown, Maryland on WARK 1490 AM and 98.9 FM. Thanks for being part of the team. Remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news, analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. As legendary songwriter and performer Billy Joel might have sung, if he were in the Big Apple today, he is in a New York state of emergency. It seems that Mayor Adams cannot in any way, shape, or form, I know you appreciate that pun, Jeff, deal with the merest fraction of migrants being sent north from Texas and has fallen to the mercy of emergency powers. Now, what does this involve, and does it do reputational harm to the brand of New York City? Well, the person who's been following this very, very closely on LibertyNation.com is author and podcaster Jeff Charles, who's been tracking everything as it happens. Welcome back to the show, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And you're almost as bad as Andrew with those puns.
That'd be Andrew Moran, writer of the Swamponomics column weekly on LibertyNation.com. A good pun is worth its weight. Now, Jeff, why a state of emergency in New York? Surely this is one of the richest cities in the whole world.
Oh yeah, it is. It is, which means that they can take as many of these people as they need to. There's no reason why border states and border cities should have to shoulder most of the burden, and that's what's been happening up until now. So I think Mayor Eric Adams is trying to make as much political hay of this as he possibly can. And it's very interesting that him and the other mayors, Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, Muriel Bowser in DC, they're asking the federal government for assistance in dealing with this influx of migrants, but they're not asking the federal government to do what their actual job is and to make sure that this influx isn't happening in the first place.
Well, surely that comes down to Kamala Harris, who, as the border czar, is responsible for getting down to the root causes of illegal immigration, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the root causes in quotations. Yeah, that's exactly what Vice President Kamala Harris is doing, while also trying to gaslight the public into thinking that the border is secure.
Yeah, I think everybody was pretty shocked when she and Karine Jean-Pierre made the point that the border is secure. I mean, isn't that just a radical redefining in language of what secure means?
It could be, but I don't think they're trying to redefine it. I think they actually think they can get the American public to think that our border is secure despite what they see. Like they don't want us to trust our lying eyes, so to speak. But really, it's their lying mouths that's the problem.
I mean, there's lies happening somewhere. Who are we to point the fingers? So what kind of migrant numbers are we talking for New York City in particular?
So they've received an influx of a little over 17,000 migrants and illegal aliens. They're getting both. A big chunk of that is coming from Texas on the Abbott Express. Governor Abbott is sending them to New York. I believe Arizona Governor Doug Ducey is as well. But they're also coming even from, which is interesting enough, El Paso, Texas. The Democratic mayor has also been sending migrants to New York City as well. So Eric Adams is even saying, I need El Paso to stop. I'm like, well, okay, but you're a sanctuary city. Why are you so mad about offering sanctuary?
Well, you know what? I think that's one of the most interesting aspects, Jeff, is that for many, many years under Donald Trump, and even before, we had cities and states and townships all across the nation declaring loudly and proudly, we are sanctuary cities. And I mean, really what they were saying is, we're better than you because we welcome everybody. That's what they were saying, right? They were claiming a moral high ground, a moral superiority. And I think the reason that the media and the politicians are so angry at people like Doug Ducey, Ron DeSantis, Greg Abbott, is because they can't say that anymore. They've ripped away this veneer of moral superiority that they had carefully crafted and wound around themselves. And that's been torn away now, because now they're saying we can't do it anymore. We've been subjected to this for a matter of weeks, and we're at breaking point. What's the new virtue signal that they're going to go for, do you think, now that this one has been cast asunder?
I'm not sure that there's one that they can use right now. I mean, they're scrambling to find decent messaging and talking points to push back on this, but they can't come up with a good argument. I mean, before, if you were against illegal immigration and if you wanted a more secure border, then you're a racist and a xenophobe. You don't want these brown people coming into the country. But now that they have to actually deal with it, they're basically proving what everybody already knew in the first place, that they don't care about these people as much as they say they do. So they've tried to call it racist to send the migrants to blue cities. They pretended it was human trafficking. They don't have any good talking points on this, Mark, because there objectively are none.
The idea of tent cities has always seemed to me something that was left behind during the Great Depression. Where they had the parks full of these tents, and we see it occasionally in movies and whatnot, where it was sad deprivation and people who had nowhere else to go, and so they went to the parks. But that's back in New York now, isn't it? That's modern day New York.
Yes, it is. For all intents and purposes, they have tent cities, and they are no longer a relic of the past. I mean, I'm here in Austin, and we had our tent cities too for a while. And but yeah, New York is having tent cities because of this issue. And again, you would think that with all of this, with them having to actually deal with the problem now, that they would put some pressure on the White House to do something about it. But they're still holding out. I think it's just a matter of time before they get to their breaking point.
I think it's interesting. There was an recent article in a very well-known, prominent Washington newspaper that was detailing what could happen if Donald Trump took back the White House in 2024. And it went on to list a whole range, all based on opinions of experts who were only too happy to give their prognostications. And these would-be Cassandras, they discussed a range of different things that would happen. And one of the evils that would come to America with the re-election of Donald Trump is there would be tent cities. And I was reading it and I was thinking, didn't I just read an article about tent cities in New York City today under President Joe Biden? I mean, it's blindness, isn't it, from the fourth estate?
Yeah, you're far more charitable to them than I would be, Mark. I mean, because they are not blind. They know what's going on. They're practicing a well-known political maxim that you and our listeners will know. Always accuse your enemy of that which you are doing. Mm. If you look at any place where there's tent cities in America, who's governing those cities? In Austin, our city council, the mayor, far left. If you look in California, San Francisco, LA, Democratic governance. New York City, same thing. So yeah, I mean, there are tent cities, but if Trump were to get back into office, no, that he's not going to cause more of them. I'll say that.
Well, it might be the steady escalation, but it's hardly like to be the impetus for them, seeing as they're already here. Now, how does Mayor Eric Adams, he was talking recently, and I felt quite dismissively about places like Kansas, saying that Kansas doesn't have our brand. New York City has a brand. And he appeared to be adopting that as something that he was personally responsible for, the brand of New York City and how wonderful it is. Now, sure, it's chic and it's cool, but it also appears to be in the grips of incompetent governance. And there's nothing cool about ineptitude, is there, Jeff? Or is there? Is it the new cool? Ineptitude is the new cool.
Yeah, maybe he thinks that's cool. Maybe he thinks that's what's hot on the streets right now. But when you have a gubernatorial candidate have a shooting near his house in New York City, and he's trying to clean that up, to possibly get into office to clean that up, then yeah, what is New York's brand? I mean, yeah, it's chic and cool, but for New Yorkers, many of which have fled the state, the brand ain't that cool.
No, I mean, it's one thing to be fashionable. It's another thing to be alive and unbeaten. And I will be back with Jeff Charles very shortly, talking the wokeness invading the entertainment industry. We'll be right back. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone, hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner, joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors, deconstructing leftist narratives, debating the hot topics, and remembering to laugh.
You heard it here first.
Join the official conservative safe
You only
space.
did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.